TED Talks. The first one will be Keith Sabin, who's going to be talking on My Life in the Song of Key, Populations. Keith, take it away.
That's the one I'm pressing. So Stevie Wonder sings that music is a language we can all understand. It provides us with a mirror that reflects who we are and who others are. It gives us a tool to remove the judgment between others and us. Because I, as an epidemiologist, I do studies. I study junkies, I study hookers. I take their information, I turn it into numbers, I put those numbers into dots, I put those dots on a graph, and I run lines through it. And I purport to tell you about them? How does that describe who Nelson was? This activist, this community leader, this colleague, this friend? It doesn't. So I realized I needed to undergo a transformation. I needed to see past the mirror that was being held up to me. I needed to get past the visage that was before me. I needed to see who Divine and Holly and Laverne really were. See, I grew up in a homogenized environment on a dairy farm. Yet I was the other. I was the Jew. I was the farmer. I lived with this dichotomy because I looked like everybody else. I behaved like everybody else. So I went in search of why did I feel this dichotomy? And I would go down to New York City, and I would voyeuristically cruise down 42nd Street, past all the hustlers and the gender benders, and I would imagine myself a character in a Lou Reed song. And I was trying to identify with the other, and I felt like I did. And then I would go to places like Dhaka in Nairobi, Tunis, Sao Paulo, and I could identify with those communities. I felt more at home in those communities. Sure, they saw me as other, but I saw them as us. And that was something I struggled with. And then I came to CDC, where we respect the data. And I went to Iowa, my first epi-aid, and I'm interviewing meth heads on their porches in their kitchens. And I had trouble getting past the other, of removing that judginess. And when I came back, Steve Jones, he labeled me with a scarlet KP. He gave me my first stigmata, and he forever changed the trajectory of my career. Because until then, I saw hard to count as hard to count. I was, after all, a fisheries biologist by training. And people would come to me and say, can't you just tag them? Wouldn't that make life easier? Because they didn't see injectors as any different than fish swimming upstream. And yet, when I invited an active drug user to come speak at CDC, and I watched my colleagues sit there as though they were at the aquarium, right? And they, after 20 minutes listening to this passionate harm reductionist, the whole room became us. And now, the New York Times is portraying sex workers on the cover as people like us, right? This is dissipating the sense of other, these strong, powerful people gaining a toehold in our society. Because look where we were 40 years ago. A salacious headline from the New York Magazine: we need to clean up the demons from our bedrooms. And even last week, an ambassador said, what makes these people so special? Why do we have to pay attention to them? And partly that's our fault. We describe them and their risk against us. They are other, they have this risk. We are us, and we have this risk. That's our fault. That's on us. We make it easy as pie to separate us from them. And we need to get past that. We need to overcome that. And how do we do that? We start by forming community advisory boards. We get women like these sex workers and we say, advise us, tell us, work beside us, provide us with the beacons that will prevent us from crashing on the rocks of our arrogance. We need them to hold up a mirror so we see who we are. We need to stand beside and sit beside these folks as our colleagues, because if we can do that, we will have better programs, we will have better data, we will find better solutions, we will be better people. This isn't for tokenism, this is so that we can respect both the community and the data. We need to see the diversity of injectors in rural areas. We need to understand their lived lives and their reality so that we can come together as community. So I wish that we will break bread with our fellow people who are injectors, who are sex workers, who are transgender, who are men who have sex with men, and that we will work together to end AIDS. So you see, 10 years after Iowa, where's my last slide? 10 years after Iowa, 10 years after Iowa, sitting in a drug treatment center in Beijing, I was able to see a woman in recovery and understand who she was. She was able to see me, who I was. This is still not my last slide. And we were able to get past and understand that we're each children of humanity and to remove that last bit of judginess between us so that we were no longer other in us, we were just all one. Thank you.